relation to our local media, the Dorset Echo, and an article which we're not going to show, so our readers can go onto the Dorset Echo website themselves and find out for themselves. But it's an article that they put up about Gypsy Travellers, and ultimately the concern, I think, locally for a lot of people was the stereotypes, the way in which they took individual behaviours and they lumped them all together. And you do tend to find that stereotypes are often used by the media, especially the corporate media, in order to not so much dumb down, just to make it much easier for their readers to understand. Because unless the readers have had an education that allows them to understand many of the different factors and the faculties of a society, and they've studied it to a considerable degree, the media believes that it needs to use simple language that's appealing to simpler people with a lot lower education outcomes, and stereotypes become the norm. So this is very much the crux of this particular issue and the problem. But I'm not going to focus on, or I don't want us to focus on a critique of the Dorset Echo. I just want to allow us to look at how, thankfully, this is just a small portion, so many people have responded. And as we can see here, some of the many critical responses, way to go, Dorset Echo, spreading the hate as if there wasn't enough prejudice around here already, which in itself says so much about Dorset. It says so much about, the readership, if you like, of the Dorset Echo in some respects. Some good old-fashioned racism from the Dorset Echo, is it? Important to remember that where intolerance can lead, there is bad behaviour in all groups, loads of litter left by tourists on Dorset beaches, but also by locals. Tackle the behaviour, not some group of people who will, like us all, be a mix of characters. That is a brilliant response. Don't label the individual, don't stereotype us all into a group. Just focus on the behaviour, because many individuals have extremely positive attributes. The fact is that when they behave in a certain way, once we attach that label, all those positive attributes dissipate. They disappear from people's consciousness. But if you focus on the individual behaviour, we can work with that behaviour and we can change it, which is obviously a lot more challenging if we're focusing upon the holistic individual with all their individual complexities. What a pathetic, racist little article. They felt threatened by being asked for water. This refers to the people who came forward in the article and said, oh, they probably doubt they're going to come back to Weymouth or back to the area again because of their experiences with Gypsy Travellers. Whole day pitch where the Caravan Club have been setting up camp for years. Replace that with traveller pitch, where travellers have turned up for years, and you might have a solution. This, just finishing off, more unwarranted hatred towards families that struggle because of ignorance and privilege being manipulated by right-wing media spreading hate. This is somebody local who's written this. These discriminated people are living a traditional way of life. The earth was not made to be owned by privileged and greedy. Land stolen by church and state a long time ago and passed down through the inheritance. Still, life gets harder as Priti Patel brings in laws to make anyone travelling a criminal. Respect breeds respect. Hatred does not bring anything good. The history of Roma and Irish travellers is full of it. Stop the hate and ignorance and provide sites rather than selling off public land to private interests. Councils are serving themselves. So in itself, that was really where I want us to focus. It's not, again, on this, here's something in the media and how vile it is and how short-sighted it is, etc. But it's the response of the public. That's what makes you feel so good and enlightened by the fact that we're not on our own. There's lots and lots of lovely, great people out there.
Well, that was great to see, Jason. Yeah, and a good article that you put together. Highlighting those really good quotes from people, and it was nice to see. Often on social media, particularly Facebook, on local groups, we see quite a lot of racism and prejudice, and that happens very often. But on this occasion, on those were mostly taken, I think, from the Facebook page of the Dorset Echo site. Local people, you know, really challenged the Echo about the nature of their articles, their reporting. I think that was the third article of that type within the space of a couple of days, and it was great to see local people standing up for decent values, and traveller sort of history. It's worth mentioning to our listeners, this month is Gypsy, Roma and Traveller History Month, and in fact, in terms of a local event, on the Saturday the 26th of June, there's an event at the Borough Gardens in Dorchester in the afternoon, weather and COVID permitting, but at the moment it's due to go ahead, from 12 noon till 4 p.m, Saturday 26th of June, and it's an event organised around Roma and Traveller. It's organised by the Roma and Traveller Family History Society.
Fantastic.
And that will be a very interesting event to go along to. So yeah, and of course, you know, like somebody referred to in that, I think that last quote, land wasn't you know, it's a political viewpoint, but this land is our land. It wasn't meant to be stolen by the rich and privileged, and often violently, or sometimes with their ill-gotten gains through things like slavery, and kept to themselves, and the Enclosure Act and things that stopped ordinary people from accessing the land. It was just stolen by the rich and privileged, and they've held on to it ever since. A great friend of mine, Tom, tells a little story that you know, an average person goes up to a privileged, wealthy landowner who owns vast swathes of land and says, how come you got all this land? And the rich person says, well, it was given to me by, I inherited it from my parents. Right, how did they get it? Well, they got it from their parents. How did they get it? Well, they inherited it from their parents. How did they get it? They inherited it from their parents. How did they get it? Well, they fought for it. And the average person goes, oh, right, okay, come on then.
Yeah, brilliant.
That's a joke from my friend Tom.
Yeah, that's great stuff.